welcome to Smiley's. Today we're joined by a very special guest, which I think needs no introduction, but if you'd like, Nif, to introduce yourself.
Hey folks, I go by the username of Niflrog on Reddit, Discord, YouTube, and I don't know which other platform, and I like talking about Malazan, and for some reason people like what I have to say sometimes, part of the time.
Yeah, that's a great intro, Nif. Welcome to the show.
Indeed.
Thank you for having me. Really fun.
Of course. So in general, today the idea is to talk about Ian C. Esslemont's writing until Stonewielder, because Mora's not read any further. But knowing me and Mora, and probably Nif, we're probably going to diverge from that topic fairly quickly. So bear with us.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely. Before we get any further, since you're the first time reader, Mora, would you like to share your thoughts before we do?
About Esslemont's writing in general?
Any topic you like. In this particular case, since we're not going to be sticking to anything particular.
I know I'm I'm not the host, but I think it will be nice for you to describe how do you think Esslemont is transforming or developing as a writer from the Knight of Knives to Stonewielder.
Yeah. See, when I started reading, right, like two and a half years back, and even now, I think the general recommendation in the sub is to read the main 10, quote unquote main 10, and keep Esslemont for when you do the reread, you can just mix up the books together or something like that. I believe Lee and a few others have somehow done the publication order of all the books mingled together. And now that I'm reading these books, I think I have missed out. I should have added these books, because I think by House of Chains, by Midnight Tides, I was sure I loved these books, isn't it? So I really don't know why I had to keep Esslemont books for a separate reading, or for a reread or something. It should have been added on, and it adds so much more to that world, to that history, to all the world building that Cam does. It's really amazing. But yeah, the thing is, I read Knight of Knives, I think at the end of Cripple God, which is something I wouldn't recommend to anyone, because it's a completely different voice, a completely different setting, and at the end of Cripple God, that is not the type of book you want to pick up. So I bounced out of it. I just finished it, but I didn't get much out of that book. It's only the reread which really opened my eyes, and I thought, yeah, this is an amazing book. And Cam is such an excellent writer, even for his for that was his first book, or probably Written was the first book, I'm not sure. So
I think it was the first published.
Published one, yeah. But I think Written was the one he wrote first. Something, yeah. So
yeah, I think a version of Return of the Crimson Guard was written, but yeah, I'm not sure it's the one that was published ultimately. I think
the rumor is that it was like double the size. It had a lot more. I think Calor featured a lot more prominently. Like he talked to everybody, and then he basically got everyone except for Traveler.
Wait, the published book is half the size of what he wrote.
Yes. Return of the Crimson Guard was a lot bigger.
Oh.
You know, Malazan is full of that kind of things. Like the Gardens was initially supposed to be a script, for a movie, and which means that it should be possible to have Esslemont and Erickson analyze Gardens and like highlight it and say, look, this part of the book was transformed from an earlier version that essentially Cam was the one doing the writing, because it was a script. So this was inspired by something that Cam wrote initially, or like this part it was in a tabletop game where Cam was doing the DM. So a lot of the stuff that happens is like Cam is the one that knows the one that was DMing.
No, but a Return itself, I've been telling people that it would have been great as a trilogy, just Return could have been split into 3 separate books, because there is so much going on, and I don't know. It was a little tough to follow, at least initially, and I was making notes, and that's the only reason I could keep things straight. But overall, it was really enjoyable. How did you read these books, Nif? Esslemont books? Did you combine them with the
I am a proponent of reading the Book of the Fallen first, and then the novels of the Empire, and then whatever you want. It can be Carcanas or the new stuff that is coming out, or the other trilogy of Esslemont, which I am now reading. And why is that? Yeah, I'm halfway through Dancer's Lament.
Nice.
So I read them like that. And there's a very specific rationale for that. The Book of the Fallen takes a lot of effort and focus I'm a very slow reader. I ruminate a lot about what I read. I almost never speed read. I just can't. Besides, English is not my native language, so I kind of struggle with with speed reading. But I don't even do it in Spanish, which is my native language. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I think books are more than just the plot and the world building and all that. I think there are things that a book tries to say, and that is done with the tone, with the way things are written, and with the progression that is done within a given subseries. So my concern was that if I started introducing the books of Esslemont, of the novels of the Malazan Empire, it will be difficult because there are changes in tone. I will be opening new plot lines with their own thematic explorations. I will be mixing themes. I will be mixing the evolutions of the two authors. I just decided to try to, and on Reddit people reassure you can read the Book of the Fallen first and then come for Esslemont. And I did it like that, and I found out that actually, I think people don't give Esslemont to not everybody, but a lot of people back in the day didn't give Esslemont the credit he deserves because, in my opinion, the novels of the Malazan Empire are not just a supplement to the Book of the Fallen. They have Esslemont has an arc that binds more or less the 6 novels. There is a narrative. There are things that are said at the grander scale in this series, just like the Book of the Fallen. So it should be read in its own terms and not in this constant comparison with the Book of the Fallen. That's why I propose that people do it like I did, like first the Book of the Fallen and then the novels, and then whatever you want.
Yeah. So since we brought up Path Ascendancy, one thing I noticed that is common to both the Book of the Fallen and the novels, but not Path Ascendancy, is they're very history from below-esque, history of the masses. It's not about, take Path Ascendancy, which is very great men of history approach, which is to say, you follow Dancer, you follow Kellanved, you follow the big names that crafted this empire, and then contrast that to Knight of Knives, to which you see the assassinations, but you don't see them from Dancer's perspective or Shirley's perspective. You see it from Kiska, who doesn't know what's going on, or Temper, who thinks this is about him. And I think that's great because it fits the theme of the Book of the Fallen while also serving its own narrative plot. So the overarching themes that tackle the entire novels, one theme I personally singled out is grief, and very specifically the grief of one very specific group of people, and even more specifically one character. I can't get further into this. This is a subject of a future essay I might write eventually, but I never got around to doing it.
Which character do you mean?
I think it's you'll see. It's not so prevalent here. It's more prevalent in the latter half of the books.
Okay, yeah.
Cash. Let me just put it like this: who is the character when you are in grief? What other characteristic comes to mind?
I think of Traveler.
Okay.
No, it's not Traveler.
Traveler is definitely one of them. Yeah, I'm not thinking of Traveler here, but yes, Traveler definitely fits.
I can't confirm nor deny because it will be a spoiler.
No, because you both went quiet, so I'm sure it's not Traveler, but it's okay. Let's find out.
I've only told this to one other person, and they didn't actually figure out who I mean. Even after finishing a sale, they asked, "What did you actually mean?" Oh, yeah, makes sense. So I'm not sure if Nif is actually me, the same person, but
is it Possum by any?
Possum.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep guessing.
Possum doesn't appear enough to warrant that description, but yes, Possum is also in grief after Lucine dies. So
then it's Kiska.
That was actually Ro's guess. Yes, when I told Ro about this, his first guess was Kiska. You'll see. You can't know now because the character hasn't appeared enough to know.
Okay, yeah.
So I felt that was very interesting when he went on to write Path Ascendancy, which is just, okay, we follow these guys that are big names and you know of them. Instead, even Return, right? You see Possum, who's Clawmaster, but before that, he was just a no-name Claw that tried to kill Dazzum and failed. You see Nate, who's literally a nobody. You see Kyle, who is a slave that was purchased and then get to see the guard through his eyes. You see, and so on and so forth. You never get to see any big names. You don't see through Lacine's eyes. You don't see through Urka's eyes very much. You don't see through Traveler's eyes. You don't see through Malik, for example, very much. It's very bottom-focused. And because of that, the narrative framing of the story of holy shit, the Crimson Guard's returning, and there's a civil war going on. It's very focused, much more beyond what you would see from this huge novel that spans so many things. Because even when everything is going on, you're still grounded in a single perspective, because that perspective is only concerned with one very specific thing at that point in time, which more often than not is survive. So that's one thing I think Cam does very well, despite the fact that his early novels, are very expansive in volume. I think one book that does this also fairly well is The Bone Hunters, which is just massive. It's like 3 novels in one, and it still manages to ground you in one perspective.
I like how Erickson puts it. Like, yeah, Bone Hunters is basically 2 novels put together.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I will say it's 2 novels and a short story put together. Like, there is a chapter you could cut from the book and, number 1, publish it as a short story, and number 2, make a movie about that chapter alone, and it will be a good movie with minimal editing.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be like a one-shot scene, isn't it? That whole chapter.
Yeah. I mean, 2 chapters fit that bill. Both chapters 7 and 23 fit that bill.
I don't know what is 23 now.
The Malaz City fighting,
Okay, yeah.
The meeting with the Empress.
Yeah, you have
that could easily also be made a short story. It'd be great.
You have that one, but you also have there's this chapter that is before there's a chapter in, I think, Reaper's Gale or the Cripple Cut, which is longer, but by word count, I think it's chapter 13 or 12 or 6, which is the longest chapter in the series. And it's basically, I think that chapter is longer than many quote unquote books.
Okay. No, that's like a 100-page chapter, isn't it? Chapter 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a novella. It's not a short story.
These Canadian guys, they make everything in epic proportions. Like, they're gonna make a series. It can be a trilogy. It has to be 10 books. But wait, there is more. It's not really a 10-book series. In the grand scheme of things, the main series is 16 books. This has to be 5 million words. No, wait, 7. Things like that.
Yeah. Sorry, Lee, you were talking.
No, I'm mostly done. I think, if we're talking about thematic exploration, I think Cam is very subtle. So you may have heard me bitch a lot about Midnight Tides, Maura.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, yeah, I think Stonewielder does what Midnight Tides and to an extent Reaper's Gale do, but better.
See, I have a theory. Can I just tell you my theory about Midnight Tides, and then we'll get back to Esslemont? All these Letteras parts which you hate, I think it's all told by T-Hole. That's all. It has to be, because, the rest of Midnight Tides is Trallsenga, and these parts are from T-Hole's perspective, and that's why the humor is, that juvenile. So that's my theory. Let's get back to Esslemont.
Right. So, one thing that Midnight Tides does is this exploration of, cultural imperialism and colonialism, which is later picked up in Reaper's Gale with the All, and I think it's done very well there. And then you have Stonewielder, who's like, the corollary are the invaders, but not the invaders. You have one of the first lines of the prologue from Jevon is, there are invaders and there are invaders. And the whole book is then structured by viewing the corollary from, Bakun's perspective or Hiam's perspective as these, we always lived here. This was the land of our forefathers. It's always been like this.
Yeah.
And never do you get someone like Garen in Midnight Tides, who's just like a mustache-twirling villain. Yes, I'm gonna kill all the low-life scum. It feels more subtle. It feels better. I don't know. It's a personal pet peeve, I'll admit, but I like it more this way.
No, I think Return of the Crimson Guard does this, pretty well, about, identity of who exactly is a Malazan, and, I think we discussed this, isn't it? Like, what makes a Malazan, as long, at some point you're going to give up their, I'm from Unta, or I'm from Itkokan or Kontali, and, merge everything together to become one Malazan name.
I remember back in the day that people made an observation that was like really interesting about all this, but back then I hadn't finished the series. But I always found the post really interesting, and it was like, wait, you have this gigantic Kontali continent. Why did the family choose to forge a national identity around this small island that is off the coast? Why Malazans? Why not the Canese Empire? the Jakatakan Empire, the Quantalian Empire, the Hengis Empire. Why Malazan? Why?
Was there an
Makes
answer?
you
Anything?
think.
Was there any?
No, some people made.
I think it's just branding.
So yeah, some people made some comments along those lines that it was probably historic because that's where Kennebec and the group made their base of operation, and so basically they just inherited that identity from there. But it's still weird, like small island manages to control the entire continent, but still any one part of the continent is more powerful than one island. It's curious, really.
Isn't it extremely similar to what Britain did? One island somewhere far off with the same British Empire name, spread throughout the world.
Yeah, but what I will argue is that the people from the colonial territories of the British didn't really have British identity for the most part.
Yeah.
It's like Britain had its own identity and they were very clearly colonizing. But in Malazan, with the Malazan Empire, there's something different. I don't know quite how to describe it. It's like these groups are just quite integrated into the idea of the empire.
I think this is a very similar case to Rome and Byzantium, which Rome, for the vast majority of its early existence, was just a city on a hill, right? For until 400, 300 BCE, it was just Rome and nothing else. It took them centuries to just take Italy. It took them even more centuries to spread out from there. And they never changed the name. It was still Rome. And even when other urban centers of the empire, like, say, in this case, Unta or Tali or whatever, became more developed, yes, Rome was still the capital and it reflected it, unlike Malaz City, which looked like a shithole, now that Unta is the capital especially. But it still remains the cultural... Which I brought this up, I think, the Return of the Griffin Guard episode. There is no singular Malazan culture because Malaz Isle was just a place for farmers and pirates and fishermen and not much else. So that, or it's a Byzantium case, which is just they all call themselves Talian, and then to distinguish themselves from the historians, to distinguish the Malazans from the Italians later, just call them Malazans, even though the Malazans never actually called themselves Malaz. This is getting confusing. Yeah. So I don't know. My guess is it's a Rome situation because it's very much based on Rome. So they just consider themselves Malazan because Malazan basically transcended the notion of I'm from Malaz City or Malaz Isle to something greater. Now, why the name stuck is beyond me.
I mean, who knows? History is full of that kind of mystery.
Yeah, no, it's just Kellenwood deciding that he's not going to bother with a newer name or anything, probably.
Sounds very much like him, yes.
Yeah, right. So, can I just add one point to Esslemont's writing, which Nif brought up that, the tone changes and all that. Can I say, Nif, that even in the 10 books, doesn't the tone change widely between them? Like House of Chains and Midnight Tides are completely, it could be different authors. It's just the story is set in the same world. So I don't know, adding Esslemont wouldn't really take away much from, it's not like a single voice telling all 10 books. It changes so much that probably adding these books in between wouldn't really take away much from the reading experience, I feel.
I can't make the experiment anymore because I already read them. But yeah, I agree. There's a lot of variation in what Erickson does. And when I use the term tone, I hope AP Canavan is not listening to this. I'm referring to the general vibes that you get on the book. So yeah, when you take Gardens of the Moon, where basically nothing... Gardens of the Moon is for the most part a PG-13 book.
Yeah.
And then you go to Dead House Gates, and the prologue itself is like plus 21. Yeah. It's like, is this the same guy? Like, even the one or two torture scenes in Gardens are just implied. Like, this person was torturing this guy, and it was so bad that the assassin of the group was horrified, but it doesn't actually say what happened.
Yeah, we see that I think, yeah.
Then you get, like, in Dead House Gates, it's like, this guy sewing off the head of an old woman with chains. Is like, damn, what happened?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. The whole prologue was, oh God.
Speaking of, I think much of the same observation can be made of Esslemont, because Knight of Knives isn't. Well, I mean, Templar does get molded to high hell by a hound. His flashbacks have a very intense scene within Uberid. But for the most part, nothing horrible happens, you know? And then you have Return of the Crimson Guard in Chapter 1. There's that scene, which I'm not going to talk about at all, because that freaks me the fuck out. And
Which scene? Which one?
The execution in Unta.
In Unta, oh, that one. Yeah,
that one.
Yeah.
And then there's
that's not that bad.
Usu in Stonewheeler, and yeah.
When you have Stonewheeler, like, I think Esslemont is a very accomplished horror writer. He incorporates horror elements like very, very well. Like the stuff that goes on in Stonewielder and later in, I'll say it's not that
Blood
hard.
And Bone, it's okay.
In Blood and Bone, Blood and Bone and Stonewielder, that's like some fine horror. Like that was a nice addition, and I think he tones up the difficult, like the more mature themes in as he progresses. But I'm not sure I'm with you about subtlety with respect to Esslemont. I don't know how I can make that comparison between the two.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think
the kind of stuff that they are trying to be subtle about are very different between them.
Yeah, I think on a case basis, maybe, but they tackle very different things, and sometimes subtlety shouldn't be used, especially, in certain cases of sexual assault. You sometimes need to be very direct about this is bad and you should get it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's an entirely fair comparison. It's just a pet peeve of mine when people say, oh, he's bad at writing in general and Dixon's better at everything. Like, no, in certain regards, he's not. So
I think he's very accomplished and, well, I already said, incorporating horror. But also, I feel like when I was reading these two series, what I was thinking was that, everybody has their favorite philosophers that they have read or read what other people say about them. And I feel like Esslemont and Erikson are two friends that each one has their own set of philosophers that they gravitate towards. So I always see these two series through the lens of these guys came together and shared these philosophical perspectives. And I don't know, I always put Esslemont more on the side of the existential philosophers, French philosophers of existentialism, and maybe later a bit of postmodernism, but that comment is more related to something he told me, a comment he made, and I was like, oh, so this guy knows about it. And then Erikson, I'm not sure, I can't quite put it, but I'm sure that he has some elements of Nietzsche in the Book of the Fallen. And I always found that interplay really, really fun to wait.
When you say you have, everyone has their own, favorite philosopher and things like that, I take an exception because I have not really looked much into philosophies. And your Stonewheeler video was the one which, made me even look up what is existentialism and, so.
Yeah. The problem with existentialism is that I grew up reading that stuff for school, for high school.
What?
So those are the folks that I know.
Do they teach these things in high school? Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, not like a philosophy major would, but I had to read some of the essays they had written. And yeah, I think I had a somewhat, let's say, fucked up model of high school. I did have classes of philosophy, and we had to debate actual points with one another, and same for theology and all that. So yeah, it was weird.
I don't know. I mean, you make such excellent videos, so
yeah,
I think it all worked out.
Oh well.
I don't know. I think we were just probably the names were mentioned, maybe about ancient Indian Hindu philosophy and all. But I don't have exposure to any of the Western philosophy ideas.
I mean, as far as I understand, the problem is that the Hindu canon is like gigantic with exploring ideas that people in the West discovered like literally hundreds of years after they had been already toyed with by Hindu philosophers.
Yeah, Esslemont lived somewhere in the east, isn't it? I believe Thailand or
Thailand, yes,
Malaysia.
Thailand.
Or, yeah.
I think he also lived in Japan sometime.
Is it? Okay. No, so there are some influences, like so many like Indian names are, part of the stories he writes, like Bala and Anand and all that, Ashok Regiment. So I really like Esslemont's names because they have some relation to Indian names. I don't know if it is like intentional or.
I know it's confirmed that one of the main POVs in Blood and Bone is influenced by a name he learned in Thailand. So
really,
so it's saying it's native to Thailand.
I didn't know that was an actual name.
So evidently it is intentional in part. I just don't know about the Indian names.
Yeah, you're learning that after talking to me.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard him deny it.
Well, the thing is that these guys they pick up their names from very weird places, like oh god, this is so embarrassing. I can never remember which are the helms and which are the swords. The Grey folks, the Grey blades or helms, the ones in Capistan.
Grey swords, yes.
The folks of Itkovian swords. Okay, the Grey swords, because the other ones are helms, right?
Yes.
Cool. So
I don't know how
swords.
he keeps all this straight. Yeah, sorry, I get confused too.
If you notice their names, to me they look like Armenian names.
Yes.
Armenian Georgian names, like.
Yeah.
In fact, until I listened to people talk about the series, I didn't say Itkovian. It was Itkovian, Brukavian, and who is the other one? Tanakalian, Karnadas, and like with the same cadence that Armenians and Georgians pronounce their names. So when I heard people, no, Itkovian, and I'm like, what? Really? It's like the historian, like. I hear Erickson say like it's Diker, and I'm like, you mean Dewiker is Diker?
How does Erickson say that?
He says Diker, and it's like it's Dewiker.
It's Dewiker. It has to be Dewiker.
Yeah.
And I also hear that like Karsa is apparently I don't know if it is Romanian or Hungarian, but it's an actual last name.
Oh, okay, nice to know that.
I was shocked when they said that. It was like, really?
Yeah.
It's not actually touched upon the main thing we wanted to touch upon today, which I think is the differences between Toll the Hounds and Lordship of the Throne in a non-spoilery manner-ish.
As far as possible, it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
If the discussion goes where it goes.
Yeah, so I think what the setting of this issue is, number one, we know that the series was, for the most part, the world building was constructed during the tabletop games through RPG gaming. And so they will alternate. You will have Erickson being the DM of Esslemont's characters, and then they will switch. And Esslemont will be the DM for some of Erickson's characters, but they will also play with some other folks from time to time. For instance, Karsa Orlong and Bottle were played by one of their friends, Professor Paxton McRae. He's like Karsa and Bottle. And then you have Esslemont's characters, among which you have Dathem and Kellanvet, and I think, I don't know which one of the gang of the Rugistan. So you have obviously Osser was from Esslemont's gang. And on the other hand, you have Anomander and Crop, and I think Murillo, a couple more, that were Erickson's characters. I think that when you analyze some parts of both series, each author describes the character of the other guy through the lens of, having to face that guy in the RPG games. So you will see that in the Book of the Fallen, generally speaking, within the constraints of being like an ethical writer and interrogating the decisions of your characters, you still find the general tone around Anomander to be very sympathetic. And Osserk, for the most part, is an asshole, an entitled asshole. Esslemont, on the other hand, paints Rake as an arrogant guy that thinks that he's better than everybody else. And Osserk as conflicted, but for the most part, an okay guy. And I think you have that interplay. So I find that interplay interesting, particularly in Toll the Hounds, because in Toll the Hounds you have Krupp, which is Erickson's character, that is at one level narrating the entire novel, in some narrative level, let's say. and then you switch to Orceptor Throne that is related to all the hounds in ways that are not really relevant for you, Cash. I mean,
Okay.
It's not relevant to detail what those connections are, but if you read the blurb of the Orceptor Throne, you kind of guess what the connection is. At least they're taking place in Darujistan at more or less the same time frame, not chronologically, but not at the same time. They're not concurrent, but they're very close in time. So on the one side, you have Krop, which is Ericsson's character describing things, and then very soon you have Esslemont writing this Orceptor Throne in Darujistan, and he has to portray Krop. And if you compare both characters, it's clear they are the same person, but you can infer a layer of bias from the narrative perspective and think of it as one guy making fun of the other.
Yeah.
And I find that in these two books, it's like all over the place. Like, even after Orceptor Throne comes out, and you find the way in which Esslemont portrays Krop. In one of the later novels, when you go to the dramatis persona, the description of Krop is a round little man.
Yeah.
And to me, that reads like Ericsson making fun of Esslemont making fun of him.
The levels of irony in this out of charts.
I realized when I started listening to interviews of both and reading the novels of the Malazan Empire, I realized how much they talk to each other within the novels. It's insane.
No, the one thing which stood out to me, about the prologue, because that's the one thing I read, is how much Esslemont stresses on Krup's height. He keeps telling that he's round, he's small, and he comes up to, Baruch's sitting level or something, which I thought, it has to be some in-joke between them.
It has to be, but also like Ericsson is exactly my height.
Okay.
Cam is like 2 inches taller.
Is that all? Because I've seen the photo of the three of you, and okay.
Yeah, if you notice the way we're standing, I'm standing with my feet together, and I'm upright. Okay. Esslemont is with his feet apart, and he's like not squatting, but almost. So you can see that Ericsson and I are essentially the same height, and then Cam is like 2 inches taller.
Yeah, okay. No, but he just seems a lot more taller. Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
So, if I may.
Please, yeah.
If I may bring the conversation back to what we're talking about. So we already brought up Krupp, but another character that is very obviously written differently between series, and we brought this up before, is Dancer, with Steve's character. Kellen Vett was Ian's character, and you get no points for guessing who played Leoman.
Who played Leoman, actually?
So, do you mean...
Who?
Cam did, obviously.
Was it Cam? Really?
Yeah. It was his character during the Siege of Yucatan. The first one, not the second one.
Yeah.
Which Leoman wasn't actually present in the books in that siege, but well, who cares?
No, because Leoman in Stonewheeler is like really nice.
Yes, exactly.
I sort of forgave him.
He's a misunderstood folk. He's a poor guy trying to run away from the imperialist Malazans. While in the Book of the Fallen, he's a war criminal.
Yeah.
I think both authors frame him the same way. One just, like, in House of Chains, maybe I think it is, or The House Gates, Boric just basically flat out says that Leoman doesn't believe in anything. He's not a fanatic. He's not going to die for you. And that's a bad thing. And then you have Stonewheelers like the Queen of Dreams is sending him with Kiska because he's not going to be a fanatic and kill Taishrin out of principle or whatever. So it's like the same thing, but portrayed differently. And I think it's really good. In the same vein, Dancer is absolutely bloodthirsty, out of knives, and they have this sweet shadow god who's like, yeah, I'm going to be your uncle now. Anyway, carry on.
Dancer is one that is, well, but at least, Steve does a great job humanizing Dancer in the later parts of the Book of the Fallen. But I find that, particularly in the Path to Ascendancy, I'm sure it has to do with the fact that he's younger. But Dancer is very fucking arrogant. Like, damn. He doesn't even look like the same. I mean, I know it's the same character, but he's so arrogant. The only character that I see that has this kind of special continuity among the two is Dasim. Like, Dasim is the only one that is cool and sad and serious and everywhere.
So, before we go back to OST, one thing I noticed in one of my pet theories is that Dancer is humanized precisely because of his position with Sore in Gardens. Before that, Knight of Knives, Path of Ascendancy, the flashbacks, he's an arrogant, bloodthirsty, cool, nonchalant dipshit. Yeah. And then he possesses Sore.
He's the patron of assassins. What do you expect?
From Death House Gates onward, after he leaves Sore, he realizes, hang on, I shouldn't be like this. And part of that is probably because of Sore's influence on him, and also Panic and all that. But also, it's Steve's character, and Steve has likes him considerably more than Cam does, who viewed him from the outside as the sidekick.
So, yeah, the trickiest part is that when you're playing a character, you know what their motivation is, provided that you manage to get into the character. Like, I assume that's what you do when you're playing RPG. That's the point, to get inside of the role. When you're facing either an NPC or the character of the other person, you have to infer what the other character is, what their mental state is. You know, the premise of Malazan, empathy and compassion. I think Erickson never decrypted some of the quirks of Cam's character. Essentially Shadowthrone, and who else would I say he didn't? I don't think he quite understood Dancer. Not Dancer, Dasim.
I think he's gone on to say that he never actually got Dasim because Dasim was very closed to him. He was very, as you said, serious and sad and all of that. So he never actually got into him.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, because Cam actually fleshes out a lot of the kind of, he builds the character of Dasim, not just in OST, but also in Path to Ascendancy. It's like, yeah, that's pretty much the same Dasim. It's just that he's letting go a bit more about it. But I have to say, they are both very good at keeping the characters very close to their chest. And for Shadowthrone, it's like, I love what Cam replies whenever.
Yeah, that's the next thing. Yeah.
When people start talking about Kellanvet and ask, here when I met with them, it wasn't a conference it was a festival here of fantasy authors, and he was being interviewed by a French guy that seems to be a fan of the series, and he's like, Cam, what the fuck is the deal with Kellanvet? Like, is he insane or is he just a genius? And Cam was like, he gets a smile in his face, like he's having so much fun, and he's like, that's up to you to decide. I don't want to say which one was it for me. Let's say a bit of both, but I'm not telling you which one it is.
My favorite reply to this was in the sub recently, when someone asked, Kellanvet might be nuts. So you're saying he might be nuts. I'm saying he might not be nuts. And that's worse.
Yeah. That's worse, yeah. Do you think the characters are consistent?
I don't even think Kellanvet was consistent between sessions.
Between Esslemont and Erickson.
To be honest, I think he just got I'm genuinely believe at this point, Esslemont just had two different characters, and he rolled the dice before going to sessions, and said, "I'm gonna play him like this time." And that's how he kept his secret all along, because he didn't know either beforehand. So, no, I think overall, Steve actually managed to capture Kellanvet pretty well, in the sense that, the tapping of the cane, the giggling, the cracking wise, the manipulation, all of that is good, but you don't get to see who as much, the human Kellanvet. You only get to see the god, who is powerful enough to not care what everyone else thinks of him. Whereas Wu still needs to build that empire like he built. It needs to, he doesn't. I also believe that Cam said that Kellanvet was an illusionist, so he had basically no hit points, no special powers to speak of, no combat prowess. He basically relied entirely on misdirection throughout the sessions to keep himself alive, which is why Kellanvet is like the way he is, because Cam had to play him like that to keep him alive. So, yes, I think Steve captured Shadowthrone very well, but I don't think he could even try to capture Kellanvet, if that makes sense.
I really enjoyed the way Steve made Shadowthrone. I think one of the funniest scenes in the series, in Steve's series, is one made by Kellanvet. By Shadowthrone already. So I think it's very on point. But whenever I read Cam write Kellanvet, see, it somehow transforms everything. Like there is something that I find hard to describe that comes out of the page whenever Esslemont is writing Kellanvet or Shadowthrone. I don't know what it is. I see that Steve mimics that very well, but it's not the same. And I don't know what it is. It's like a certain tone in the things he says and how he does things. Is very, I mean, you notice it if you pay attention. So, yeah, I think they're as consistent as they can be. But, yeah, you notice the difference. The same goes with Crop,
yeah.
Particularly in Toward the House, Crop's effectiveness is, you can't deny. The guy's very effective. He gets everything done in the Registan. He's always aware of any challenge. He's always proactive. He always plays full to have the advantage of, of surprise. But yeah, when you go into the detail, I think they're different. I find Crops in OST a lot more goofy, and in Tell the House, for obvious reasons, he comes off as more badass and awesome.
No, I felt that the way Cam writes Kellanvet is much more funnier. But you're saying that's not the same with Krupp, because I thought the person who has the character sort of, is a bit more reckless with the sense of humor. But that's what I felt, because Kellanvet in return is...
in return, and it's not the last time you read about Kellanvet, let me tell you. So keep paying attention, because he becomes very, it's really funny. But yeah, my favorite... No, it's just to tell you that the scene that I find super funny about Shadowthrone, written by Steve, is the one where he calls the nameless ones the nameless idiots. He's giving a full-out rant to Ganos about the nameless idiots.
Some of my favorite bits are like the Shadowthrone. What are advocates? Like when Hood tells Shadowthrone Menandor that I'm gonna do horrible things to you, worse than what I do to advocates. And Menandor asks, what's an advocate? And it's just a leech on politics and stuff. And I was considering having them all executed. Why didn't you? Well, the royal advocate said to be horrible. And then in The Crippled God, about his mother. The scenes with Kellanvet's mother are yes, it's he's talking to Dancer in The Crippled God about how his mother was never satisfied with him. It's amazing.
It's there were a lot of theories about that back in the day.
I didn't look very deep into it.
People, I mean, what do you think, Ash? Do you think that was just like a joke, or do you think there's something hidden about that passage?
I thought he was just making a joke. I don't know, because I let me tell you, I don't remember it exactly. I just know that there is
part of it is Dancer is very dour then, because he feels like he's failed. And Shadowthrone nah, you haven't. I mean, look at what my mother thought about me, all the things I achieved. She still thought it wasn't enough. We have done enough. It's fine. It's gonna work out. And but also, it's just hilarious.
I lost it when he goes and then my mother is like, oh, so you're god of a warren? Oh, let me guess, the broken one. I lost it when it was oh, you have a warren now? The broken one. I knew. It's always this tone of disappointment.
But also, one reason I told Mora that I would like Warren in Stonewielder. One of the reasons is, even when he's joking, he's still some cryptic things, because throughout the entire passages of all of Warren's things, one of the main things he wants is his fish. And it's never entirely clear what the fish actually means, because there are literal fish that are, consumed by the Warl. And there is a big fish that they find that's 3 times his size, and he's like, my fish. And then he also talks to Cash about, okay, I'm going to eventually catch the fish. What do I do with when I catch it? And that's when it clicks to Kiska that, hang on, he's not actually that crazy. He means something with this. And it's that spark. Yeah.
No, but then she has to stop and think, isn't it? What am I going to do after finding Teshran? No, about the advocates, can I just add one thing? Because I'm reading the novellas now. I think Steve had it for his tax collector the year he wrote A Worms of Blairmouth. Oh God, there is a tax collector who goes through a lot of stuff. And yeah, it's a fun book. So both of you haven't read the novellas, isn't it?
I have not.
Which one?
The Korbal Brooch and Bok.
No,
How do you say that?
no, I haven't read. No, I haven't read it.
Okay.
I don't know because I live in France, so my reaction when I see that name is to say Beauchelin, but they say it all Canadian English. Beauchelin, it's just Beauchelin.
I think of it as Bockelin or something. How do you say it, Lee?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be Bockelin. I always read it as Beauchelin.
Oh.
And I was very surprised with learning it's not actually, it's just pronounced the K.
K sounds natural to me.
Same. It's the same with Felicin.
How do you say it?
Felicin.
What? Okay.
Felicin.
Now, to touch back upon the subject at hand, one thing that obviously differentiates OST and TTH is that TTH comes before, and all the destruction brought upon the Rujistan from all the Hounds, we view the aftermath of Orbs of the Throne.
Okay.
So there's that. The other thing is the themes are obviously different.
Yeah, I found OST much lighter, generally speaking.
I mean, who's going to beat Toll the Hound's, bleak tone?
I think you could make an argument that Forge of Darkness is around that ballpark.
Yeah. No, not Erickson's books among the novels of the.
Yeah, I think the novels generally are more upbeat. There are some dark points, but a big part of them is overcoming that. With Kiska, Kiska could be depressed. Kiska could literally just give up and say, "Okay, I'm done here. I failed. I'm gonna go hang like Dassam did. I'm gonna hang around the monastery or whatever." But she didn't, and the same is true for other characters. We'll say.
Yeah, but as far as that goes, I will say that the most depressing in atmosphere is Blood and Bone again. I found some of these scenes that are like really nihilistic.
It's bleak.
Esslemont taps into that type of mindset, but it is not as oppressive as in Toll the Hounds. And don't get me wrong, everybody knows that Toll the Hounds is my favorite book of.
Yeah, you call yourself a supremacist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a Toll the Hounds supremacist, and but that said, yes, I think Esslemont he taps into similar themes, but I appreciate that they're not as oppressive as Erickson can make them. And I say it. This is not a criticism of either. It's just to have the ability to switch between one mode and the other. And I think that's really rich for the series as a whole. That's something that I really appreciate about Esslemont is that he's capable of, in terms of plot, to be more traditional in the structures of his novels. And in terms of themes, he still puts the themes in there, but they don't feel as oppressive. Even though the jungle is, I will argue, a tool to explore one theme, the jungle feels oppressive. The broader theme doesn't feel that intense as in Erickson, which I think it's a good compliment to the entire universe. Besides, the theme is like in the title of that novel, like Blood and Bone.
I think that about themes being in the title is also true of Orbs of the Throne, which, spoiler, a big part of the themes is leadership and rulership. You'll see why, Mora.
Okay.
The chapters are subdivided by Orb, Scepter, and Throne. The cards in the deck that correspond to Orb, Scepter, and Throne are all about rulership and different aspects of it and tools of rulership, and a lot of it deals with these sort of themes, and I think it's done very well. Orb, Scepter, Throne was probably my favorite book in the novels, probably. Even though I didn't quite get it at first, and then I watched the AP interview Cam about it, and like, holy shit, hang on. I missed like all of this book, and I still really liked it. And that's down, I think, to obviously the compelling characters. Yes, go on.
No, I'm just saying that, that unless you are, I don't know what your academic background is, but usually if you're going to do like very serious analysis, it's usually useful to decouple both readings. Like make one reading to know where the plot of the characters are going, and then do more focused reading or something that you want to analyze. Because the truth is that following the plot usually takes your attention from the finer points.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's normal. That don't feel bad because of you missed this and that, because those guys are professionals.
Yeah.
Like fucking APs. Damn.
Woe betide me if I ever felt disadvantaged because I was not as good as AP at analyzing things.
Yeah, but that's why this reread is making so much sense to me, because it's possible to just sit back and let the book tell me its story rather than me rushing through it and trying to find out what happens next, which is how I usually try to read books. So
I mean, I do
sorry, I
too.
interrupted one of you.
I'm constantly trying to decode things in the books. That's why I think so much about them while I'm reading.
Oh, no. I don't even think usually. I just keep turning pages so that, I'm done. I have to know like where it ends at. It's a very superficial level of reading. So that's why rereading and slowing down and discussing means so much to me because, it makes me think so much about the books.
There's something I appreciate about Reddit, that you have a lot of people that do like to discuss the finer points. Like
why Lassine is not Reddit, so bad and all that.
You found.
Sorry.
Yeah, but like, I'll be honest. The first time I read the series, I didn't understand well the Ikari warrants at all, and
Me
I was
too,
like,
yeah.
I was like, yeah, I know it happened, but we don't know anything about it. And then comes in this, the folks that read the series when it was coming out back in the day, and says, of course it did. And she pastes this text wall describing the exact scene where Feather Witch, what's the name she has in that weird
Breath or something
state?
Breath.
Yeah. And Breath gives this lecture about them, and I'm like, how did I miss that?
To be fair, there is that scene in the prologue of Just a Dream which just says, okay, there's a grape moth that watch a wanderer of green skin, naked with a sword, and everyone misses that, and then they're confused about the whole plotline for the rest of the book. And then you go back and read, how did I miss that? And if you miss that, the entire plotline's not gonna make any sense at all.
I think my friend had to I had to be told that this is Icarium and this is what is going on. I think somewhere halfway around the book, because I didn't put it together on my own. Yeah, I interrupted one of you.
I knew what it was going on since the prologue. What I didn't know was how much the ghosts were a part of Icarium's psyche, taking a shape, or the actual souls of the original holders of the characters. And for me, that was most of the fun part, going through the plotline. But what I didn't understand is that when Brett does the explanation, I'm like, this doesn't mean anything to me. And then when I had finished the series and I went back and read that section, it was like, but it's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Lee, we were talking about reading styles. What's yours?
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait. Well, the first time around, I sped through the series and the novels in about 4 months. Then I got pretty deep into uni because I finished around mid-December, and then I had to kind of stop because, well, not stop, I had to slow down. And I read Orbs of the Throne like a month and a half, whereas I read Gardens in like 4 days. So, in general, a lot of the things that I retained were because I discussed them a lot, because I went on the sub and I talked with a lot of people about it, and then that helped me refine my take, and then I went back to reread it and like, oh, that makes sense. And that's how people sometimes ask me how I ended up, this Lassina says, well, it's from a completely unrelated event in a completely different series. It's an ASL. Nif knows what I'm talking about. That I read that and like, hang on. Oh. And then I had read a post in the sub a few days ago, trashing Serler. Like, that doesn't sound right, like that doesn't click for me. But I hadn't given it any thought before. So a lot of my reading styles is I'm going to read through and I'm going to try to read in whatever I can, and then I'm going to discuss these fine print points, the little details, the thematic details with people, and then try to formulate a minion.
Let me tell you, that scene almost makes me cry.
I mean, it did make me cry, so that's why we're here now.
What is this thing happening in ASL?
No. Listen, Cash.
Yeah. That's a spoiler.
Yes.
No, it's not a spoiler.
It's not important for the story. It's just, yeah.
But one thing that I appreciate about the novels of the Malazan Empire taken together is that you can see the process of Esslemont refining the craft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just that he improves, it's that you notice that he had that potential all along. But he's testing the waters, what can work and what doesn't. And I will argue to say that the last 3 books are very refined. And from what I read in this first book of Path to Ascendancy, is even more polished. That's easier to notice in Erickson because the guy is just, I think Erickson is just he's a gifted writer. He's operating in a form that is hard to really pin down. So he's juggling with all these elements. For me, I don't think I understand what Erickson is fully playing with at the literary level. But with Esslemont, it's much more clear to see the process of refinement that he's going through. And there are scenes in Blood and Bone, in Sail, more than one, because Lee is talking about one specific scene. There are many scenes that hit very hard in A Sail. Like, I don't know, people say whatever, but A Sail is a very strong finale to the series. Yeah. And there are many moments that hit really hard emotionally.
I think like, really the ending of A Sail is like parallel to the ending of The Crippled Goddess, the only ending that could feasibly work.
I agree.
It's very obviously there. When you see it in retrospect, it's like, oh yeah, that was obviously what it's building up to. But then it hits. And I remember very vividly of me going, oh shit, when I read that. It hits. It's the culmination of 6 books. And it's really good.
It all boils down to one scene, I think, in Return, where you see something going on, and there's one character that is witnessing that. Oh, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out who that character witnessing was. If you can figure out who that character is, you kind of expect what's going to happen eventually.
Do you want to tell me the scene? Because, I probably still remember Return, and 3 books later, I might not.
If I tell you, you can put together what is going to happen.
On a reread, there's so many hints. There's hints in Stonewielder, there's hints in Return, there's hints even in the Book of the Fallen. There's so many hints, and I completely missed it because just like Seren, for instance, I was blind to what was right in front of me, and it's amazing.
Yeah, okay, it's all this concept of retroactively loving something that you read and didn't find particularly striking. They are both very good at it.
Okay, don't confirm or deny, but are you guys talking about the A word who have tapped into something which is, the woe has gone somewhere, like what Usu finds out in this scene with bars? Are you guys talking anything about that?
By the way, on that scene with bars,
oh no!
If you remember, in Midnight Tides, Sandalath touches his chest and he gets filled with sorrow. Yeah. I think it's just Esslemont going, I can one up you, bitch, and then just has Usu go into his chest. Yeah, that's what I think that scene was.
Oh, that's disgusting.
No, the scene has to do with the ritual of the Crimson Guard.
Yeah. No, there is some.
Oh, that's okay. I know what you're talking about. Okay.
There's one character that is witnessing at them, and they don't really notice that character. And the character is somewhat described, but I could never place who that was.
I don't remember what.
If you do know who that character is, you can make all the connections. And
no! That's in Blood and Bone, not Return. That's in Blood and Bone.
No, I'm talking about Return. Very early into the series, he sketches what is going to happen. Just like Karsa stepping over that statue of the boar god.
Mm-hmm. Oh, is it? Okay.
I actually don't remember what scene he's talking about.
Can you just tell us? I don't mind.
There are many scenes like that Return, by the way. There's so many scenes, so much foreshadowing that I missed.
It's a flashback, and they're going over the moment they're thinking about taking the vow.
Okay.
You have Cass, you have Skinner, you have some others, and they're about to make the vow.
That is
they're in a certain place. No.
There is a scene like that in Blood and Bone. When they take the vow, it is in Blood and Bone, and there is a person witnessing them, and that's the hint.
Yes, but in Blood and Bone, I think they tell you who that character is.
No, I'm pretty sure. Well, they are described, and then they are confirmed later. But I don't. I have to read back.
I think in Blood and Bone, they tell you who the character is, and you're like, wait a minute. But the problem is that in Blood and Bone, it's already very late. You have a lot of other clues already.
I don't remember the scene at all. Okay, all right.
But in Return, it's like, gosh, I don't know if you want to know who the character is.
I don't know. Is it like a spoiler? Is it going to spoil my reading? I don't know.
It's not a spoiler, but if you figure out the identity, you can put them together and find out some things that are likely to happen.
Okay, let me see. At the end of Blood and Bone, maybe I'll ask you guys. Because this is something to do with A Sail, isn't it?
Yes.
It has to do with the entire series, actually. But
the story culminates in A Sail.
Okay.
Yeah. In A Sail, it's like, oh, you didn't figure it out? Let me spell it out for you.
Okay.
This is what's happening.
And we should note that he spells it out, and it still hits super hard.
Yeah, it's like, thanks, come. Thanks.
I think the power of the moment is that he spells it out so blatantly. So it's not a bad thing at all.
I think it was so well done, because you always have to think that, writers have to write for a lot of readers. If you make things too obscure, you have the issues that Erickson had early in the series, where people couldn't figure out some stuff, and for him it was obvious. On the other hand, it's like, if you do it too obvious, it's like, dude, I'm not a kid. It's clear.
Some of those things is what we struggle in moderating the sub, because at what point do you say knowing traveler's identity before, I think, chapter 22 told the hounds? Because it's quite obvious, isn't it? Long back, that this is Dasam, and so something which I don't know, as a team, we somewhat struggle. Iskar Jarak's identity, because to me it was obvious in Bone Hunters, but I don't think it's spelled out until Reaper's Gale.
Told the Hounds.
Told the Hounds, okay. So yeah.
The funny thing is that even in Told the Hounds, you could argue that it isn't really a reveal, because it's not called by name. It happens, I think, that the actual literal reveal happens, I think, in Dust of Dreams or the Crippled God itself.
Oh.
When they say, Iskar Jarak is Whiskey Jack.
Okay.
But yeah, you can figure it out earlier. What I'm going to tell you is that I didn't figure out that Traveler was Dasam in House of Shame. I didn't even consider him, because I think I didn't pick up that he was from Dalhon. It is said that it is described somehow in House of Shades that Traveler was a Dalhon. I didn't put it together. I don't know why. So I had to wait until Cotillion in Told the Hounds.
It was all but said, and like he was like one of the first to join the family, and at first it was just him, Dancer, and Kellenvet. I was completely oblivious. Completely.
Yes, but for me, that trio was never. That's not how I thought about the family. I didn't think that it was them three first and then the others. For me, those three in particular, for me, it was Kellenvet first and then the others at the same time. I didn't know the three of them were together first and then the others came. So I was thinking about some Nappans and maybe some mothers of the old family, but not Dasam in particular. But yeah, in hindsight, it was obvious.
Actually, some of these things I think my friend just told me straight up, because I don't know, he got tired of watching me struggle probably. Like Keeper is Urko and all. I think he just straight up told me.
Yeah, the one with Keeper, but for me was super obvious.
Yeah, no, it was not for me. I didn't even guess that those faces in the rocks were Tilanimas. I don't think I got that either. So I think by then my friend knew that I better help this one.
The one with Keeper is that I remember very specifically when someone says like, no, because Orca Cross could punch down a house with his fist. And then he comes and brings down the house called Karsa Orlon with his fist.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's too obvious.
No, House of Chains, I think book one is like, one of my favorites.
I don't want to sound mean, but I enjoy it, but I hated Karsa power. And even up to this day, it's not that I enjoy the character. I hate the person.
Oh.
Like, if I could kill one character in Malazan that has survived so far, it will be Karsa.
I think you know who my answer would be.
Yeah, the Saviour of the realm.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
The savior of the realm.
The young and merciful.
So, since we brought him up, I have a few things to say. Is that one thing, obviously, Malik in Esslemont's books is very, very different than Erickson's books.
Yeah, but it's also different because I think power transforms people in one way or another.
One thing I told Mora in our last episode, I think it was somewhere, is that I'm convinced that Malik the Gistal would drive the Empire to the ground in 2 years. I'm convinced of that. Malik the Merciful is the best thing to happen to the Empire.
Yeah.
So, what is the difference? The difference is that somewhere in the Crimson Guard, Mel dumps him into the ocean and says, okay, now I'm free of you, go fuck yourself. And Malik, rather than saying, you know what, screw this, I'm going to go kill Mail or whatever, thinks about this and says, I should be patient. I should think about this. I should do other things. And one thing I've took to noticing in this reread is in the Bone Hunters, in that scene with the parley, Corballo asks Tavor what the deal with the parishes, and Tavor responds that they're barbarians. And Kalam thinks, yeah, barbarians sailing the best damned ships in the whole ocean. And then in Stonewielder, there's Captain Peles, who is a captain in the Greyhelms in Parish. And so, from literal nobodies considered to be barbarians among the Imperial High Command, comes a captain in the Malazan military that's sworn to a Parish soldier, because Tavor brought them up. Similarly, he heeds the advice of one Tavor Perrin about an understanding of motivations and stops persecuting the Wiccans because that's going to bring his empire down, and so on and so forth. So as much as I hate the guy, Esslemont writes him really well in the regard that his change is believable and it's not so jarring as to say, oh, this guy is now emperor 10 years later and the empire's great.
I also like that they haven't touched Malik directly after he becomes emperor.
Yes, that is great. That's very good.
So you see what he's kind of doing. You see his efficiency.
And we don't know. I still don't know why.
But you see that he's willing to put his personal grudges on the back burner, perhaps forget them altogether, just for efficiency's sake. So that's fine.
Which is, I dare say, another thing he learned from someone else, namely Surly. The man learns from his enemies a lot, and it's annoying because I want him to fail. God damn it.
When you think about it, the entire notion of never forget about the barbarians, it's a quote from Kalamvet. So yeah, Malik clearly knows his empire history, and he puts that into practice clearly. So yeah, the guy is very effective. It is. But for some reason, I hate Karsa more than that.
Because it genuinely feels like Karsa does not learn, and what he learns, he doesn't, he learns, evidently. He's very learned and very philosophical by the end of the series, but it still feels like the lessons he took, no. I, in a group chat with Samora, I actually delivered my rant about Karsa.
Oh god, yeah.
And why I think there's a line in The Crippled God when he picks up Munug and takes him to the temple and whatnot, about how to die in someone's arms is the most forgiving thing in the world, and every savage barbarian in the world ever knows this. Now, I don't think I need to remind you that Karsa's village, the Templor, left their children to die as a sacrifice to the Faces of the Rock when they became the Found. Now, I'm not saying that's bollocks, but I'm very ready to call bollocks.
You did call it bollocks, so...
I did call it bollocks, and I'm going to do it again.
No, see, there is a separation between something you do in the name of religion, where you sacrifice deformed babies because this is what they believe, and this is what, it's part of what Icarium has taught them to, to make their blood less cloudy or something.
To make it pure.
And there is a difference between people actually dying, either through natural causes or unnatural causes or whatever, like actual dying people, the way you treat them. It is all, it is extremely relevant to what we see today, isn't it? There is a concept called good death, which is something which palliative care deals with, where you try to make sure that all avoidable distress can be avoided for the patient, right? And that includes having people nearby and making sure that family is present and all those things. But I don't know, I love the way that Erikson through Karsa goes one step further and says that it's not enough to just have people standing around you in a sterile room, isn't it? Having them in your arms as they pass away is something different. And it was extremely powerful for me to read what Munug and that Karsa scene with Munug. So
it would have been more powerful for me if he wasn't a hypocrite.
That scene made me cry like a baby.
It did.
But it is a very powerful scene.
Sign up for it.
I have to agree with you, Cash, that you say they're hypocrites from our point of view, and they are from our point of view. But from their point of view, it's like, if you will, take the notion that reality is not something that we access directly. We access reality through a system of beliefs. So when they leave one of their kids to die as sacrifices, the worldview that they have is that they aren't really letting those kids to die. They are allowing for the gods to recover them, something like that. Like the reality they live in is very different from the reality we live in.
Very true.
So it's not hypocritical in that sense.
Yeah, I agree.
But still, my issue with Karsa is that his personality profile is the same as a bully that bothers you in high school or in that sports club you go to or on the internet whenever you just say something. It's like that's the same profile I get from Karsa. There is just one character that I would say that I hate more that is still alive, if you can say that's alive, in Malazan, which is the errant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Today, I think Mora's hate all the people that I like.
You like the errant?
I mean, I don't have a problem with him yet because I'm still in Midnight Tides, the reread. So.
Well, look. Yeah. People hate Olar Ethel. I don't know why. I find her okay.
Oh God!
Some people hate Kilmandaros. I don't know. I love that character.
I love her too. Yeah, that we are agreed.
Some people hate who else? Some people, misguided as they are, hate the Saviour of the Realm.
For fuck's
sake. The guy's a douchebag, but he's
I'm
fine.
going to live with it.
But I mean, I cannot redeem the errant.
So you know how there's an adage in Malazan that whenever something goes bad, a Draghood is probably behind it?
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. The errant is probably behind it. Everything that went wrong in the world, that fucker's behind it somehow.
Yeah, and just to fuck with people and just to keep relevance. It's not for anything like transcendental. It's just like, oh look, I can screw these people up. Let me do it.
Yes.
Oh look, if I did do this, I will be more influential. Let me do it.
I don't know why you need to hate on someone for being that way.
Because it's fun. It's really fun. Hating on fantasy characters is really fun.
I can confirm this. I can indeed confirm this.
Do you know how fun it is to go into these rants about fantasy stuff, like hating on something?
Don't you, like, I still remember vividly that in chapter 5 of my essay, I referred to Malik as that guy because I didn't want to name him. It was hilarious. I loved every second of it.
Do I hate anyone as much as that? Lee might know. Do I hate anyone as much as that? I'm not sure.
You really hated Leoman. Like, really.
Yeah, but I came around. So.
Okay. Is that power? So the writer of Esslemont is so powerful that he switched from the never Leoman to the always Leoman camp?
Yeah, because in my mind, this is the dude who betrayed Korab. Awesome guy Korab, and I will not. Please do not trash Korab, both of you. So from there, he sort of felt sympathetic by Stonewielder. So I didn't want to read the Jewel scenes, but at the end it was fine. Yeah.
I don't hate Korab.
This guy does. The other guy does. Yeah.
I don't hate him. Never did I say that I hate Korab. I just said that we shouldn't hate Leoman because he betrayed Korab when Korab very obviously is too dumb for his own good.
See, the not hating is coming through.
I find him funny. I think he's very cool. I think what he did with Filler is great. I think his end is not hilarious. It's very poetic and cool. But he's also dumb as a break.
Look, I have to say for Leoman, he did offer
he did,
an out. Yeah. He did offer an out. It was like, look, Korab, all this is bullshit. I don't believe any of this bullshit.
Yes.
Come with me. Save yourself.
Yeah.
So he at least he's not that much of an asshole. Well, yeah, he is.
You agree when Nif says it, but when I said it, I'm just an asshole that hates Korab.
You don't put it in such nice words, do you, Lee?
I did put it in a nice way.
He's an ass, and oh God, I don't know what all you told me.
Okay, fine. I did say, how could you do this? You were the chosen one or something about Korab, but
no, but see, I like Korab because regardless of his IQ and all that, is because he helps Fiddler at the end. So even he overcomes his prejudice against all Malazans and helps Fiddler. So he's number one in my book.
That's something that most people never manage to do in real life, and I don't know if most people, but a lot of people. Like that's one of the hardest things. Like there is this phrase, this quote, I don't know from where. It's easier to trick someone than to convince them that they have been tricked. Most people that buy into these radical ideologies or propaganda and stuff like that have it almost impossible to disconnect from them. And Korab doing it was like, oh, this guy is great. He ultimately saw that, no, Malazans don't get inaugurated as Soviets by eating babies. Which in hindsight is like the most hilarious.
I think it comes up somewhere else in Stonewheeler too, isn't it? The sea folk, I think, assume that people eat babies, or somewhere it came up again.
I think so. I don't remember the quotings. Do you remember, Lee?
I know that the sea folk get all the flack from people about because they also worship old gods. They're not the lady, and so they get demonized. There is a very, very much of that religious intolerance in the lady, which leads to these sort of propaganda myth spreading, which is, I think, great theme handling. I don't remember if it was a sea folk that was supposed to be eating babies, but
yes, there was something. I'm sorry,
I could believe it.
No, she thinks that the crimson. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Let me ask you this to both of you: do you think the lady is a fragment of the crippled god, or B, an old deity that found a fragment of the crippled god and used its power?
Do you want to go, Lee? Shall I?
I think Morris said B the first time around.
Yeah. No, I still think
it's A.
If the option is available, I'm taking B. Sorry, go on.
I think it's A because of a future book. Oh. So I'm cheating.
I know which one.
No, because as far as I'm concerned, if the option is available, then it's B. Lee told me that it has to be the crippled god, so I just left it at that. I asked him that, is this some old deity who has, taken up the powers and all that, and he said no. So
I mean, they very
obviously carry about that.
Pieces of them. They carry pieces of them, but it could be. It's not impossible.
Yeah, but the thing is that we had been told for a long time that the gods use the power of the crippled god for their use. That's why they chain him, to siphon their power and benefit from it. So give me an example of one god that does that.
Was it? Yeah, that's true. I thought it was just something, not something obvious like tapping into the crippled god's blood and taking his power and all, but maybe it just added to the power of the entire world and only gods could access it. I'm not sure if there was something specific for that.
That's a possibility, but the other possibility is, for example, do you see the fork roll trying to do something using the heart, and then one possible option is, the lady being an altar god, siphoning that power for herself, and maybe also some other gods trying to do the same. But like the lady, because there's something else, like what we see in both the Book of the Fallen and in the novels is the pantheon as a specific group of people see it. Is like a model of reality, not reality itself. Throughout the series, we see there's a lot of gods that are not in the pantheon, but they're still gods. People still see them, and it makes more sense that they are the ones siphoning the power from the crippled god. Incidentally, they do not participate in the chainings. It's only the big ones. Well, you could say Drishna is doing that, but I'm not sure Drishna is actually a goddess.
I
don't even think Drishna is siphoning necessarily the crippled god's power. I think it's just Emerlan that she uses and why she's powerful. And the crippled god is more like an acquaintance rather than a tool.
I would like to think that she's the first true consort.
Perhaps.
Not because she allied with Kaminsud, but because, thematically, people get into roles even if they don't want to. So I think Drishna just fulfilled the role of consort early on, and then, I always forget which is which. Then Soliel? No, Poliel.
Poliel's the god of pestilence. So Poliel.
Yeah, because Soliel is from Shed, and also, with S is healing, with P is poison. Oh, God.
Certainly.
And then the most badass redhead in the universe takes the role and gets the deeds done.
Yeah. Why would you say Drishna is not a goddess? Like, isn't it sort of her main thing that she has become a goddess?
Yeah. I don't know why I don't think of her as a goddess. I mean, she has worshippers and all that. But I always saw her more like an ascendant than a fully fleshed god. I don't know why. But yeah, she should be a goddess. She has worshippers, power, she should be.
Right. Have we run out of things to say?
I don't think we have, but I think...
Is there anything else we are forgetting about all this? So there's something I almost forgot to tell that I have to say here.
Yeah.
I told that to Cameron, and he was really happy to hear this. When I finished Return of the Crimson Guard, I couldn't stand Kyle. I found him boring, stupid, like the character I wouldn't want to read more about. So I delayed my reading of Stonewielder because I knew a Stonewielder was going to be with him, as opposed to Scepter Throne, which was a detour. So I wanted to get to Scepter Throne because Darugistan, that's my favorite setting. Yenabag is my favorite setting. Crop and all that, a lot of fun. But I didn't want to read more about Kyle. By the end of Assail, Kyle, I can safely say, is one of my most enjoyed characters of the entire series. I really enjoyed reading the last phase of him, starting in Stonewielder. Like, he grows up and, like, he becomes someone like you. You enjoy reading about him. Besides, they made his name more cool. I don't know why the Americans hate that his name Kyle. I don't know what's the issue with Kyle. Yeah. To me, Kyle, Ben, this is just the same. John, Jamie,
Jack, etc.
Jack, thank you.
Yeah.
All those names are exotic to me. So
I mean, you have like the cool names like Dorian and stuff. And then you have Kyle, and like, okay, what's the difference? It's a fantasy world anyway. Which reminds me, by the way, this is a complete detour. There was a post that about Leandris and Casa. And
I was waiting. I am here. This lady is calling me out because I don't know a damn thing of Greek, and I'm like, where is Lowly? Is it Lowly? Where is Slowly to help me here? Where is he? I need help here.
So, what I wanted to say is that you have, for instance, that's a Ultor. Ultor means Avenger in Latin. Yes, you have Corvola Dom, who is named after a Roman general. Are all of these people Roman or Latin? No, because the Book of the Fallen is a fucking translation in the first place. It doesn't matter if the word sounds Greek or not, because that's not the point. Dasim isn't based on some Latin character because his name means Avenger, which I guess he could be based on Mars, who had the surname Ultor. But naming your character after the God of War is very ambitious. My point is, the name itself and how it's pronounced and written in real-world language does not matter, because the book itself is written by a character in the world in another. It's like, are you going to draw conclusions on Lord of the Rings based on what the fuck the characters' names mean? No, because it's explicit in the text. It's a translation from like a book that the Hobbits wrote or whatever.
Hobbits?
Yes.
What I like about all this is that when I switch the burden of proof and go like, okay, but I did the best I could with this information. Can you make a counter proposal? Everybody's like, oh no, I'm just saying that I don't like this detail about what you said. I don't have anything better to propose. And I'm like, and so?
Okay. So I think it doesn't, well, for one, I think Casa sounds much more, I think Casa was even the name of one of Caesar's assassins, for instance. Casa sounds much more Latin to me. Again, it doesn't matter. The point isn't these names must sound Greek or Latin. The point is that they allude to our world. I'm letting you speak now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the implication is that it's not that they precisely come from our world, but I think there is some meaning being conveyed choosing those names.
Yes.
When you give one step back and say, well, why would the author name this character some name? Like, for example, Cotillion. In the Malazan universe, there is no such thing as a cotillion. Cotillion is a random word from a random guy that just took that name and is worshipped under that name. If you happen to be American, or if you are very old-fashioned here in France, you know that a cotillion is a dance.
Yeah.
So while in universe it doesn't mean anything, the author is talking with the reader and telling him, like, notch, notch, cotillion is a dancer. I'm sure if AP listened to this, he will tell me the name of that term. It might be paradiegetic information, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
we've already gone over in our Lorne episode with Mora about why names matter in Malazan. Sorry, Lorne, Tillian, all of those. And yes, okay, obviously Leandris sounds close enough, but not quite. For that matter, Anomander, if you add a couple extra letters, can be sort of a transliteration of lawless man in Greek. Does that mean Anomander is Greek? No, doesn't matter. That's not the point. It's a translation, and it's alluding to some information extraneously out of the text to show something. He could have just named them like some. He could have called the followers of the Crippled God fucking Klingon or whatever, in whatever the Klingon tongue is, because he likes Star Trek, and it would still not matter because it's a translation of the book regardless. So they're not actually meant to be Klingon coming to our world. I don't know, whatever Klingon do. So to approach it like this, like, oh, they don't actually sound Greek. Nobody cares, for fuck's sake. I didn't type anything, but I just want you to know that I actually think these things.
I know you didn't type anything, but I mean, what am I going to do? I have to acknowledge, because I don't know anything about Greek. I only use Greek numerals with Greek letters in math when I'm doing some development, and I ran out of Latin letters. I start bringing in the Greeks. But yeah, it was cool to learn that.
I think part of Nif's response was that even Erickson is not exactly Greek, and he might not be familiar with the Greek way of naming.
Look, I don't want to bash the guy, but he's very specific. I only speak English. I can understand Swedish, but I don't speak anything other than English. So take it with a grain of salt. He himself says, do you think he's going to go through a Greek text like, okay, how do I pronounce this? How do I say this? How do the diminutives work here? Like, he doesn't. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he does.
That's a fair point.
If he's listening to this and he's saying that, yes, he does, he's free to contact me. He knows how to contact me. I just imagine Erickson. Well, Nif, hold on. Yes, I did.
Oh, would that be fun?
It would.
Right.
So anyhow, yeah, that is my discourse on why these names don't actually matter if they're Greek or not. So I think that about concludes.
I found that very funny.
Yeah. Right. Are we out of things to talk?
For now,
we could probably come up with more stuff, but it's almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
So we should probably make the last the closing statements, because I mean, I'm sure that if we can talk about more stuff.
We can probably. Okay, can I just ask you guys one thing? Like when you say it hits you hard emotionally and it made you cry and all that, do you guys actually mean like cry? Because I do. I actually cry. Yeah. What about you, fellas?
For me, crying is closing the book and having tears in my eyes.
Okay.
That's what I mean by crying.
Yeah.
But when I say cry like a baby, it means that I make sounds, like including the tears and all that.
Okay.
The first time around, in the Book of the Fallen, I only teared up when Gas and Stormy died. That hit me hard. Mm-hmm. The second time around, I legit went to the shower and bawled like for 10 minutes on the end of the House Gates. That fucked me. So it depends. The second time around, though, it hits me harder because I know what's going on, and I don't have to focus on the plot and everything because I need to keep reading. The Crippled God, like the first time around, Last Two Travelers destroyed me. I was in tears from when Guest died and Stormy died at the end, up to and including the epilogues. That entire thing was spent teary-eyed.
Yeah, because this is something I'm always curious when people say it made me cry and all that. So.
And that aforementioned scene in Assail, because it was really late and it was like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I just read it like, I went, oh shit, and then,
oh God. You are hyping that book too much, both of you, so.
You'll know the scene when it happens.
You have to take Assail with a grain of salt, because a lot of folks miss the point of the critic of history that both authors are doing, and they expect to see in Assail exactly what an underinformed or unreliable character says is going to happen.
Okay.
If a character says, look, we have to do this because this is you check their biases. Are they lying? Are they uninformed? What's going on? Can we really trust in what they're saying? Do they have motives to lie or motives to be ignorant of this or that? Always do that. Because the framing of Assail is in terms of something that happens in Memories of Ice. And if your expectations is that everything that the Memories of Ice promise happens in Assail, it will be frustrating.
Okay, what actually pisses me off about the criticism is when Lana Stogg meets Envy, she is coming back to the gathering to say that they have lost, that the war is over, and they have died. and they have lost. There shouldn't be a war going on because whoever's on Assail, the humans in this case, won.
The
8
human
months
tyrant.
of battle, 23,000 fucking whatever Imas have died. I'm the sole survivor from my clan coming back to Silverfox to say that we lost. Why are you expecting to see a war going on there? Why?
Because I think it comes up again in Stonewheeler when it's sort of implied that a war is still going on. That's the impression I have even now.
A few characters bring it up. Cotillion brings it up, and I think Bone Hunters when he.
Yeah, but the problem is that you don't know if there's war going on or if Assail is just overall shitty, dangerous, and always like that.
One thing I noticed about Assail is it doesn't have epigraphs. The book doesn't have any epigraphs, unlike any other book in the series. And one very cynical view I've seen a lot is that Cam just got lazy. He got lazy. The real reason, I think, is if you read Blood and Bone, a lot of let's take Stonewheeler. Stonewheeler has sayings. Most of them are from Corelry sages and librarians and stuff that have collected sayings over time, and they're very small. They're like 1 or 2 sentences. They're not historical. They're like that line about they were enlightened. We brought the faith of the lady with the stories. Blood and Bone. A lot of Blood and Bone is journals from diaries from sailors and explorers that have landed in Jacuruku and not actual Jacuruku peoples. Assail, for the most part, relies on oral tradition. There is no poet. Well, there is no person from Assail that. I guess there is one, so it doesn't count. But most of Assail doesn't have any written tradition or any epigraphs for you to put up, and no explorer that went to Assail came back alive. So who is going to write the epigraphs? Nobody. That's why there's no epigraphs in Assail. And so you really have to take and the prologue of Assail also sets this up a lot because what Nif mentioned earlier about how the book is framed and what goes on dates back to Memories of Ice. It kind of shows you that this is not the kind of story you're expecting to read, and you should go on with altered expectations. If you're expecting to see battle between Imas and Dragut about like the fate of the world and stuff, you're gonna be disappointed. That's not what happens. That's not the point.
Yeah, but there is something else about any battle between the Jagut and the Imas, and it's really very obvious. If any important group of Jagut came together to fight the Imas, there will be no Imas. Like, Jaguts they're objectively the superior group. They are calm, doing their own thing. They make some genetic experiments here and there. Yeah, there are some ethic violations there. But for the most part, they're the most powerful. Like, just imagine Gothos, Hood, the 14.
Yeah.
Like, just put them all together and
they
say
went to fight death and they won.
Yeah. Imagine them like fighting the Imas. Give me a break.
Oh, yeah. A jagged supremacist also.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, I have evidence to prove it. It's just like, they just don't care.
Yeah. So in short, to appreciate the stories that Esslemont trying to tell in the novels, one must not approach them as a supplement to the Book of the Fallen, because they're not. One must not approach them with preconceived notions of, this is going to happen, because it is not going to happen. I mean, he pretty much, as I said earlier, there's foreshadowing. There's so much foreshadowing in the books that it's what's going to happen. It's pretty much laid out in front of you. You just don't see it. But it's not. The book is telling you what story is going to tell. You deliberately avoiding it because you don't want to read that story is going to take away from your enjoyment. But it's not the book's fault.
That's why I refuse the framing of the Book of the Fallen being the main 10, because the moment you say the Book of the Fallen is the main 10, it sets the narrative of everything else. If Esslemont is just following what happened in the Book of the Fallen, you deny Esslemont's work, something they developed themselves. So the Book of the Fallen is not about Malas, it's not about the Malazan Empire, it's about the release of the crippled god. The novels of the Malazan Empire, among other things, is about the Malazan mainland and about this group, the Crimson Guard, and other things. It's like, if you accept that the Book of the Fallen is the main 10, then you're going to be disappointed because the novels are not trying to fill spaces. It does it incidentally, but it is its own thing.
Should we wind up here?
Until next time, when Mora finishes Assail, which is probably...
So,
Yeah, no, I think we're done here. So
well, folks, it's been really fun. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thank you so much for coming, Nif. I, I know you are our first guest. I'm sure you know that.
I don't know. I didn't know I was the first one.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Maybe we should, make some things work and get you a couple more people to interview here.
Hopefully, let's see how this one. I mean, I was actually I didn't know that this would go so swimmingly well. So
yeah,
I think you've given us some confidence there.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for coming, Nif. Seriously. And
thanks for having me.
It's been a delight.
Thank you, Lee, for.
Thank you, Maura, and
Yeah. So take care. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.